So maybe you're curious as to what would happen if someone was to storm a US Army installation. Well, stick around because in this video that's what I'll be explaining. What's up my friends, welcome to an all new video. In this episode I'm talking about what would happen if someone was to storm a US Army installation, just rush the gates, force their way into a US Army installation or even really a military installation even in that matter. But what would happen? Now, yes, this is kind of inspired by this whole crazy thing of going on of this storm Area 51 on September 20th or whatever, but also be aware that that person who created that Facebook page, it was meant to be a joke that just kind of blew up. But this video is kind of inspired by this craze that's going on as to people talking about storming Area 51, even if it is a joke and possibly some people are serious about it. But either way, you might wonder what would happen to individuals that did such a thing on an Army installation. Now also, just for the fun of it all, make sure you watch this entire video. Because of this whole Area 51 kind of craze that inspired this video, I've hidden some aliens during this video, and let's see if you can find them all. If you think you found them all, leave in the comments how many aliens you saw in this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this and let's talk about what would happen if someone rushed the gates of an Army base, just any old Army base. It doesn't have to be something high security like Area 51 or NORAD or anything like that, just your regular old Army base. A key thing to note, like when I first came in the Army, especially like with Fort Riley, they just allowed anybody on base. They were starting to kind of build up to it. We had to start getting these stickers to put on our windshields, and then when 9/11 happened, that really forced all military installations to kind of go into this whole force protection thing to, check everybody coming on base. But prior to that, there were a lot of military installations where you could just drive onto them without even being checked. That is not the case anymore. So if you are coming up to a military installation, I'm going to be specifically talking about Army because I don't know, globally for Marines or Navy bases or anything, but for Army bases, there's signs. So there's going to be just through basic signs saying, this base is coming up on exit such and such, or, up ahead is this base or something like that. But then once you start to get a little bit closer, then there's usually these more serious signs. These more serious signs are talking about a lot of things, but one of the things they specifically are outlining is that unauthorized access can result in deadly force being authorized. So basically it's saying that if you are not authorized to be on there, you force your way in, deadly force is authorized. And this is just your basic Army installations, not something that's top secret, not some kind of special classified, installation or anything like that. Your normal Army base will probably have some kind of sign that has some kind of wording in there like that, saying that authorized personnel only, deadly force is authorized, those kind of things. Now, people who are not military are allowed to go on Army installations. They just have to go through a process. Usually they have a dedicated gate to this for visitors, and they have to go through an inspection. They have to get their vehicle inspected. They have to check registration, license, and proof of insurance and all that stuff like that. And after the vehicle's searched, then they'll be authorized if they have an actual point of being on base, some kind of purpose, then they'll allow them on installation. If they're going to visit somebody or they just maybe want to check out some activities that are going on, maybe check out the museum. A lot of installations have museums. So people who are not military are allowed on base. You just have to make sure you go through it the right way. If you're just trying to storm into the gate and force your way in, that's definitely not the right way. Now, if you're wanting to get an Army base because you've never been to one and you're just curious as to what's on an Army base, I'll actually leave a link down in the description to a video that you can check out as to what common things you might find on an Army installation. So after you get past those signs, there's usually some kind of gate. It doesn't necessarily mean something like a physical gate that opens and closes. It's kind of like this guard shack kind of thing, maybe an overhead cover. They usually have like these little kind of type of barriers like you might see like at a parking garage that kind of goes up and down, and sometimes they use those. Sometimes they just have an individual there to check IDs first, and then other times you might come in and you have to swipe your ID card, and then the barrier goes up and then you go through and then it comes back down for the cart behind you, kind of like a parking garage. Some of that just kind of depends on the escalation of things that are happening. If something was going on, then the force protection might be upgraded to be a little bit more stricter. But if it's just normal day-to-day operations, sometimes they just have the gates up and then just a guard checking the ID to get people through a little bit faster. And then if it's a little bit dead, maybe especially in the middle of the day or whatever, when everybody's busy at work, not a lot of people are coming on and off base, they might have the gates down and you have to swipe your ID to get the gate to lift up. But there's still an individual inside like a guard shack manning to watch if someone tries to run the gate or is doing something shady. So these individuals at the gate are armed. They're usually carrying some kind of 9mm, some kind of sidearm, something like that. There's probably even someone inside the guard shack, the main shack, that probably has rifles as well. So these individuals are armed. They actually do have ammunition. A funny story kind of with that just kind of reminded me of when we first started it with 9/11 and everything with manning the gates. They weren't manned by MPs. They were just regular soldiers. They were stuck on this detail, and we were standing there with weapons, at least for us in Fort Riley, with no ammunition. The only one that had actually ammunition was the NCOIC. Everybody else was just empty magazines, but nobody really knew that. You know, the look of us holding rifles, because we were higher escalation of kind of force, even though we didn't have ammo, but we had the rifles, and so it was intimidating enough to where, you know, so hopefully someone didn't try to anything crazy. Luckily they didn't, because like I said, there was only one individual that actually had live rounds, so that would have sucked. But individuals now do carry live rounds. They're gonna have live rounds on them. They're gonna have a loaded weapon on them. So if something really needs to escalate to that serious, they can use deadly force if they need to. Also at the gate, they're gonna have like cameras. They're gonna have some kind of camera there to be able to record. So if someone was rushing the gate, then they can capture maybe the license plate, or maybe the person inside of it if they caught them, you know, well enough. And then there's probably also maybe some cameras positioned even away from the gate too, maybe like along the perimeter in certain areas. That kind of depends from installation to installation as far as if they have cameras or not and where they have those located at. But cameras are usually sometimes implemented at least at a minimum at the gate. Now, often you also sometimes see just past the gate, maybe somewhere nearby on the side of the road, a military police officer stationed somewhere with their vehicles. So, you know, sitting on the side of the road in their vehicle, so if something goes down, they can quickly get to the gate immediately, or someone rushes through the gate, they can chase after them, whatever. This isn't always the case. It just kind of depends on what's going on. If they have the extra men to be able to do so, sometimes the busy gates, it just kind of varies as far as if there is one or if there isn't one. So that may vary, but usually, you know, if there is a military police officer there, then that is an additional thing that is available and as an asset. So if someone was to rush the gate, then that military police officer can also chase them down in their vehicle. Now, even if there isn't a military police officer there, usually past that they have barriers. They have some kind of barriers that at a push of a button they'll raise. Now, they're not like anything like in the movies where, you know, they're going to kind of come up like this and you could probably hit it at the right angle and then ramp off the thing. No, it probably goes the opposite way. So even if it comes up a little bit and you tag that thing, you're probably going to blow out your tires and probably mess the hell out of that axle. So it comes up at a different angle and then it kind of comes up to different peaks. That way, if someone was to run through, then they're going to slam right into that barrier. The barrier is probably maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 3 feet tall or something like that. It's not super tall, but I think they're probably around like 3 feet tall or so, maybe 4 feet. I guess it maybe depends on the installation as well. Some use those style. I think I've seen some people use just the pole that kind of comes straight up where it's got multiple on the road. I don't know if any other ones I've seen. Most of the common ones I've seen are usually one of those two styles. The most common one is the barrier that's kind of like a flat one that kind of comes up in the backwards position, and it can do both ways. They can either do it so if someone's trying to flee the base, they could raise it, or they can also raise the opposite way for someone who is trying to get on the base who's not supposed to be on the base. Now, like I said, this is really just for like your basic Army installation. If it was something more secure, like NORAD, for example. NORAD's here in Colorado Springs, where I'm located at, and they have cameras farther down the hill. Like before you even get anywhere close to NORAD, there's cameras so someone can see someone approaching up the road, and if they're not authorized, then they can intercept if they need to, or they can be prepared for someone coming up to the gate that's not supposed to be there because maybe they don't have the sticker or whatever authorization inside their window, or they don't recognize the license plate. However, they kind of do their security management, but they have cameras much farther down. And that's similar to probably how it is for Area 51. Area 51 probably has cameras much farther down the road, so if someone was coming up that road, walking up the road, whatever, they're going to see those individuals from quite a ways out before they even get to the installation. So the goal with this video was maybe to satisfy your curiosity as to what would happen if someone was to just rush a military base, or specifically in this case that I'm kind of talking about, an Army base, and what would happen to that individual. Well, like I said, they're probably going to get arrested, possibly get shot, all sorts of things. There's a lot of force protection barriers that are in place to prevent people from doing this. So if you're just curious of it, cool. If you were someone who maybe was thinking about raiding Area 51, hopefully this opens your eyes to see how dangerous this would be and how serious it could be, especially with a higher security installation like Area 51, or even if you were trying to do this with NORAD or something like that. There's much higher security levels in there, and they probably are better armed than just a regular Army installation is. So, did you find all the aliens? If so, make sure you comment down below how many aliens you saw. So if you enjoyed this video, maybe you think about sharing it or giving it a thumbs up at a minimum, and check out some of these recommendations right over here. Maybe these videos will pique your interest. Check out the links down in the description. I got links to social media, to my P.O. box, all sorts of fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'm ThatChrisChaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.